Everybody, welcome back to Latched Podcast. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, the Latched Podcast is a podcast for the moms in the trenches of motherhood. Today, we are going to talk a little bit about childhood safety, but in like a kind of big family, kind of lots of kids type of way. You're listening to Latched Podcast. I'm your host, Melissa Wirt, busy mom of 6 and owner of LatchedMama.com. Join us each week as we talk about pregnancy, breastfeeding, postpartum, and all things motherhood. Hi, friend.
Hey, hi.
I don't know where this topic came from. Was it somebody's idea? It's kind of pulled from a few different conversations.
It was on our podcast list of ideas, and it just made me laugh because there's always places my mind goes back to and stories that happen that are crazy. And so... Yeah. I think that like we're all relatively anxious as moms. I think that there's just anxiety built into motherhood in general, like when you're trying to keep little people alive. And I think that once you're in motherhood long enough, I would hope that we kind of all work through our different anxieties in such a way that we all land at a place where we have our limits and we have our rules and like kind of our boundaries. And every mom's limits and boundaries are going to be different, and I know mine have changed as I've had more kids and as my bandwidth has kind of like changed, but it's always so interesting to me to watch like a family with 1 or 2 kids come over to the farm and kind of be appalled sometimes at like the fact that my 15-month-old just fell riding his tricycle, and I don't run to him. I just kind of walk slowly, and most of the time by the time I get to him, he's back on it and he's pedaling or balance biking away. So I think some of this make sure you're listening with the idea that Lindi and I have 12 children. But we were once there when we had 1.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
2. And so absolutely. And then there's still some things that freak me out, you know, and
100%.
I hop on really fast. But yeah.
I have like non-negotiables. Like I've talked about this on the podcast all the time. One of mine is water. Like I will not mess around with water. Like most of my children were almost to the point where 5 out of the 6 are water safe. I would like to think that at least 4 out of the 6 would not drown if they went into the water. But I also have a really big thing with, you were to ask my children, like, what are the things that like mom wants you to know going out into the real world? And they'll probably come up with, you be kind and treat others the way you want to treat them. But one of their things will always be, you always check the water depth before you dive in. Like you never dive headfirst into a body of water or anywhere without knowing the depth of it. Which is like kind of one of my things.
Comes back to your water safety.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just really weird. There are things that I'm really weird about. But then again, I'll let a child who probably shouldn't be using a knife cut an apple. Yeah. Or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
you've got that farm life too. Like it is.
I have that just
different world and outdoors and the forest school and things like that.
Yeah.
So it's interesting how that like progresses.
I don't know, but I think it's really interesting when we start to gather together as like families and we start to watch other moms and like respect their like wishes in terms of like what feels safe to them. And I think so much of it comes from our childhood. I can tell you that our next door neighbor growing up went on like beach week in high school and he came back in a wheelchair. And I remember driving past his house every day and watching all of the construction happen because they had to turn the garage into his bedroom and they had to put a therapy pool in the back and like all of this stuff. So, I mean, so much I think of what we carry with us into motherhood, good or bad, whatever is, part of what we place onto our children. Yeah. But I don't know. Do you have other things? Do you cut every grape?
No. I don't wash said grapes.
Oh yeah, I don't wash fruit either. I should do that.
Kind of bad
as well.
at that. I probably should be washing that.
Do you squish them at all with your fingers, or I mean, I guess they're 7 now, right?
Yeah, they're 7. We don't often send grape to school. I think if I did send them to school, I would probably just slice them up. But no, I don't cut those. Like
cut hot dogs.
I do cut hot dogs up, but now they just want, a big one in a bun or something like that. But once again, I think that the independence with the large family does come a little bit early. I think just because I only have 2 hands and I'm going to have to teach you how to make your Eggo waffles in said toaster. And, you know, if I ask them, hey, what's the one thing we don't do with toasters? We don't stick a metal knife. And like, so they know to unplug it if they need to get it. Or we have these little plastic grabber nabbers, we call them, which like they're Chick-fil-A catering, like squeezy things.
It's so funny how like you go after the things that you know have high possibility of like very, very like bad things happening. Like I'm a head trauma, like you wear a helmet. Like it is non-negotiable. You get on any sort of moving vehicle, because we have a lot at the farm. Yeah. If you wear a helmet, and I don't care if your friends are here. If there's not a helmet available, that person gets off of the thing. Like, and it is one of those things that I had a fight with them for about a week or two when we first moved out there. But you do not ride any of that stuff without that. I did once upon a time show them a couple of videos of what it looks like to have a traumatic brain injury, which, well, I don't know. I try not to scare them, but I also think that they are so quick to just kind of like, especially at that like 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old, they just shrug it off like, oh, that can't happen to me or whatever. Hey, look, it does happen. And it is terribly sad when it happens. Right. And like, we need to talk about the fact that you're not indestructible, and teaching your kids that they can get hurt and that they're not indestructible. I feel like is such a hard thing to do, because they actually kind of have to get hurt sometimes to learn that. Yeah. Which is crazy, because you don't want to, I don't want to raise kids that are afraid of things. We have a sign in our house that says safety third, which freaks some people out. And I have been shamed over the past few weeks about pictures that I have on the internet of my children, which is just a whole nother thing for me, because my kids, I think, are happy. And but we do push the envelope a little bit, because I don't think you learn about the really, really super dangerous things in life unless you're given the opportunity to do some of the things that really probably aren't going to kill you. Could they break your arm? Probably. But you know what? That's why they have ortho on call. Yeah. By the way, hopefully that is a nationwide thing, because that is life-changing. Yeah. We didn't have that growing up. We had to go to the ER for every broken bone. Yeah. Now there's like here in Richmond, there's like a patient first for broken bones, and it's just great. Broken bones? It's ortho on call. It's like anything. It's like
something else. Okay.
No, but it's amazing. Yeah. It's great, and it's clean, and there aren't sick people, and you can just go get an x-ray and get in and get out. It's fantastic.
Okay. So I was going to say, kind of as far as parenting and things like that, I sometimes almost, and I don't know how to say it, kind of like change the way I view things. And it's a little bit selfish, because I'll be like, okay, now's a fine time to kind of be chaotic. And then there's like Sunday nights, like last night, where both the girls took slippery sleeping bags and were like bunny hopping, but they were getting like really close to the top of the stairs, and like they're slippery, like the sleeping bags are really slippery. Then they were downstairs, kind of like as if they're got padding, which they don't, because it's a sleeping bag, and they're like bumping into each other. And then Nellie falls back and almost hits the corner of the thing. And I said, nope. Now is not the time. It is Sunday night, and I do not have time for the ER.
Absolutely.
So it's kind of funny, because they're like, Mom, like, why can I do it this time, but I can't do it? And I'm like, I don't have time tonight. Like, we don't have time to go anywhere to treat said injuries. Yeah. So no, now is not the time. And same with like the bus stop. They're like, Mom, why do you tell us we can't run to the bus stop? Because I'm like, because you running to the bus stop results in you bleeding your knee, and then you don't get on said bus. And then I have to figure out either get you to school or whatever. So I was like, you can run another time, but you're not running at the bus stop. Yeah. Like, so it's almost like a bit like selfish as far as like, could I handle said broken bone or bleeding or whatever right now? Yeah, we got time. Okay. Yeah.
No,
you go do it.
The same
but right now,
thing.
No.
Yeah.
Nope.
No, I mean, I will look at them like on a night that Eric's gone to a friend's house or he's out, and I'll be like, nope. We're not having 2 bowls of ice cream before we go to bed, because if you puke, like I'm the only one tonight. Like let's just kind of take a deep breath. Let's not go to the museum this week because Dad's out of town next week and I don't want the stomach bug. Like it's little things like that like you just have to set boundaries sometimes with them.
So funny. Oh, I was gonna ask you, do yours, and this is, I think it's a large family thing. They roll in and they just like take a peek at what's out. Oh, there's a cup, and they grab it and they fill it up and whatever. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Because there's always like 12 cups out somewhere. Right. So the latest rule we have is you can't put anything other than like water, like in a water bottle, because
of the tie. Do you remember the slime mix?
Oh my God. So that is a new one in like those colored kind of like Nalgene.
Can you tell that story?
Yeah. Like colored Nalgene. Like you can't tell necessarily like what's in it. And so like Nora filled up. She was going to summer camp, which you're not supposed to bring anything to summer camp, but apparently she wanted to make homemade slime at summer camp. So she filled up a water bottle. And I happen to have the Arm & Hammer Free and Clear laundry detergent, which is clear. Yep. It's not like blue or whatever. And so she filled up the water bottle like halfway with the Free and Clear. Can't tell that it's not water unless you like really kind of shake it and look at how it's not moving like water. Well, anyways, long story short, my 7-year-old probably at the time, it was at dinner. And so she grabbed that and she drank. I don't know how much laundry detergent she drank.
I don't mean to laugh.
It is. It's terrible. And then 10 minutes later, she was puking all over my kitchen floor. I had no idea what was going on. Finally found out that, yes, she drank said laundry detergent from a water bottle. So now we have a rule that's like, I mean, so. And guys, poison control. She was fine. We got checked out by a nurse again. Like all is good. But it's those little things that can lead to...
And I
something
just
terrible.
Want to be completely honest, guys. We show up and we share these stories with you all because we feel like we need to bring some realistic moments back to motherhood. Like I can listen to that story and I laughed about it because now my kids are old enough and Caroline makes slime and I could see us happening, but it probably will never happen in our house because Lindy was vulnerable enough to say, hey, this happened last night. And I feel terrible about it. And I was there in the moment of it happening in terms of her texting me and calling me and stuff like that. So we can kind of laugh about it because we've been through it together. But we share these stories with you guys, first of all, to know that that can happen. And now hopefully it will never happen in your house. But also because like we're all imperfect and we're all showing up for our kids in different ways. So we're not experts. We're going to make mistakes just like you guys do. I remember I was super pregnant with, must have been Catherine. And I went to swim practice with Nathan and it was an evening practice and you were there and Gabe was in the water and Eric texted me and Eric was at home with the 4 kids or 3 kids.
At the indoor pool.
Yeah, it was at the indoor pool. And so Eric doesn't do blood in our family. He does vomit. I do blood. And I also do like emergencies a little bit. How you
like figure that out?
Oh yeah, I do emergencies a little bit better than he does, just because my mom was a nurse growing up. So like we were the place everybody would show up to, like with the lacerations or like the broken bones to have her check them out. So like I'm pretty, like blood doesn't really do a whole lot for me. But Eric called me and he was like, "Hey, something happened. Benjamin got a hold of a knife," and I was like, Benjamin was little, like 2 maybe. And Benjamin just had pulled over. Eric had turned his back for 2 minutes and Benjamin had pulled a step stool over to the counter and Catherine was just about to be born. And so we had nested quite a bit and I had bought all new knives because for some reason that was really important to my soon to have a baby life, is that I wanted new paring knives or something. I'm sure I was just grumpy and something didn't cut the way I wanted it to while I was making dinner. And so I bought new knives. And if it hadn't been a new knife, nothing would have happened, but it was a brand new knife and he sliced his finger open and Eric was freaking out. But it was really nice because you were there to bring Nathan home from practice and it was fine. And we were able to go to the ER and it all worked out.
Yeah.
But like this stuff happens in motherhood. It happens to literally the most helicopter-y parents and it happens to the most kind of like laissez-faire safety third parents as well. And I think that there's so much to be said about taking a step back from it and working through your shame, because we all have it. I mean, it was a terrible experience to walk into an ER and have to show my little kid's finger and say he got a hold of a knife. Like, I mean, how do you even have that conversation? And you just hope that you're met with, compassion and, the space to know that, they've seen worse and that it wasn't from like a neglect situation.
And I have to say from experience, that poison control number, they are amazing on the phone.
Yep.
It was a woman. She was a nurse. I explained my story. I was so embarrassed. She just completely like put me at ease. Like, this stuff happens.
It's awesome.
So don't hesitate to call that number, like ever. about anything, even like meds or anything like that. I mean, I don't know, dog food. Like I'd probably be the one because I don't have dogs. I'd be like, if a kid eats too much dog food, is that bad? Like,
I don't know.
Like
but there's
I just
a poison
wouldn't
control for animals though too.
Yeah. So there's that number, and I would have it on your fridge because this stuff happens. And I think sometimes these things almost have to happen for you to put in place some measures. Like now our laundry detergent is on a different shelf.
Yep.
And we talk to the kids all the time about what we put in water bottles. And do we leave 12 of them on the counter, which is still kind of happens. But it's just there's that understanding now to, hey, let me check about what I'm drinking. Because, I'm sure your kids like go outside and they take cups and they make mud pies and they make, soap mixtures. Yep. I mean, it happens because they're kids and they're exploring and it's great. But it can lead to
we really try
crazy
to
times.
Keep for my sanity. We keep like as many like natural cleaners as we possibly can. It would probably take my kids. I say this, hopefully, cross my fingers. I mean, I can't even come up with a lot of the things that are in our house proper that the kids could actually truly get sick from quickly. I mean, I guess they could drink laundry detergent. Ours is blue though, but they might drink that. Who knows?
And
but
I keep a bottle of bleach, but now we keep it outside in the garage, like on a really high shelf. So we do have some of those things.
But it can happen so fast, so fast. I had one who he stood up in his high chair and he toppled backwards and he hit his head and then he threw up. And I was like, oh my gosh, he has a concussion. And thankfully we have an amazing pediatrician who is able to talk me down pretty quickly. But when he gets alarmed about something, it scares the crap out of me, which is really interesting. But so we didn't have to go anywhere, but we had to monitor him and stuff. But I mean, it just happens. Like there's no way to get through motherhood without it. But I think it's truly finding those things that make you the most anxious and those things that are really, really scary to you and start very early setting those boundaries and setting those like conversations with your kids. But it is so hard to do it in a way where you still raise children who are ready to kind of tackle the challenges that come to them in the world.
Yeah.
I don't know. So we were reading an article. There was an article in Scary Mommy about a new playground that was just built in Melbourne. And it was built in a way that is a little unsafe. It has sharp edges. It has boulders. It has...
if you could picture kind of like rock climbing wall-ish, but in a lower form with kind of different little areas that you can like climb on and stuff like that.
Yeah, it wasn't just like bouldering though. It was like big rocks, but then you had like monkey bars between the two big rocks and stuff. Definitely places you could fall and scrape yourself. And it's so interesting that you have something like that in this world where like I know all of our neighborhood parks got rid of all of the swings because they were unsafe. It's unbelievable to me. Like my favorite wooden playground that was near to our old house, all taken down because it was wooden and it could cause splinters. And for liability.
That's the reason?
Yeah, I mean, I would assume that it just wasn't aging well, but in my idea, you go out and you sand it and you stain it again and you keep moving forward. But the entire thing was taken down. And it's just sad to me because like kids are going to get splinters and I get it and they can get infected. And I'll never forget when Nathan fell one night. Oh God. This is a good one. It's probably not going to come through very well on the podcast, but I mean, he was old. It was like a year ago, 9-10 years old. And he fell running back. We went up to the big field to feed the cows one night and we were coming home and he fell on a stick. And he kind of like,
gosh, I remember this.
He pulled it. He kind of pulled it out and it was fine and it wasn't bleeding. And I looked at it and I cleaned it up like a good mom, put some hydrogen peroxide on it, put a band. And I think I just left it open that night to just kind of ooze because I could tell it was kind of a puncture wound, but like it was okay.
It was like on his shin, wasn't it?
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah. It was like right on his shin bone. Yeah. So the idea that anything could still be in it was like, I mean, slim to none, like right on his bone. And then it just wasn't healing and he was going to swim and he was in the chlorine and he was out of the chlorine and it was just like this thing that was like not healing. And so then my brain goes to, well, does he have leukemia? Like, why is this thing not healing? And I promise you guys, I'm not like, I only go to like that crazy place when like we're all the same. Like moms are just, I'm like, why is this thing not healing? And so he would let me squeeze it, but he would need to bite on a washcloth while he was doing it. And so I would squeeze it and I would get the pus out and I would put some more antibiotic on it. And like, I hadn't called the pediatrician because it wasn't really streaky yet. I don't know. Back and forth. 3 weeks into this thing, the thing had not healed. And guys, I promise you, I was keeping an eye on it. Like, it was not to the point where it looked like he was going to lose his leg. It just wasn't scabbing over and healing.
Yeah.
I squeezed it one morning, and no joke, a 3.5-4 inch piece of wood just comes out of this kid's leg. I was like, he was appalled. I was appalled. I wish it had been on TV. Like, that shit would have gone viral. Like, Eric was, who knows where Eric was? I don't know. But I'm like, okay, don't touch it. We have to show your dad that this came out of your leg. He will never believe you. And he's like sitting there. He's like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. I don't know. But yeah, so I don't know what the moral of the story is, other than I'm just going to share you guys all of our crazy stories that happen, because it's like, it's stuff.
I remember when you told me that, because Lennox had something similar in like minuscule proportion compared to what came out of Nathan's leg. But it was crazy because Lennox is like, don't touch it. That's the scab, Mom. I'm like, I don't think that's the scab.
Yeah.
It looks like really dark.
Yeah.
And I'm like, just let me, like, I'm not going to do anything crazy. Yeah. And I put it, and like, it was like probably like half an inch little chunk of the bark or whatever he found. And he's like, oh.
So like, interesting. But that stuff can go sideways. I mean, that's pretty high up, those skin infections and MRSA and stuff. That's pretty high up on my list. I had a spider bite like as an adult, like maybe 4 years ago. Remember that thing? That was disgusting.
Was it on your ankle or something?
Oh yeah, it was absolutely terrible. So that is one of my things too. Like, I keep a really, really good eye on it, which is why it surprised me so much. Like, I mean, I knew that something might still be in there because it was still weepy, but never in a million years did I think that was going to come out of it.
It's really funny just with splinters. Like, I really do keep like brand new like needle packs or whatever laying around. But I told you we went to camping and Lennox tried to fart on his sister when we were outside at like the picnic table, and he slid on the bench and got like 3 massive ones in his butt cheek.
Didn't you have to come home?
No, I didn't. But he's like laying on his bed, and I'm trying to dig these things out with like a needle and, you know, cleaner or whatever. But like, it's just splinter. Like, I really hate splinters or whatever, but it was just really kind of funny. Like, they're just brothers and sisters. But like, they do crazy things.
It's interesting because you look at a park like that and people are like, oh, I would never go down that slide, or like this park in Melbourne. But I can tell you that Benjamin, also right before I had Catherine, I think that kid was just telling me that he didn't want a little sister or something. He went down a slide, and it's so interesting, guys, because literally my kids are pretty fairly free ranging, try things, fall down, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But he ended up going to the park. We had 2 nannies. They had 2 nannies with them at the time. And a nanny put him on her lap to go down the slide. And I had no idea, except for the fact that we had put it in a video once. We had put it in a romper video of somebody going down a slide with somebody with a kid on their lap. And we got kind of comments from all over the place about how unsafe that was, and that was something I had never really considered, in the fact that it was unsafe in motherhood. Of course, we would never put it on the internet if we thought that, but so I had that in the back of my mind, but I never really like kind of met with the nannies and said, hey, make sure the kid doesn't ride on your lap going down the slide. Like, I'm like, make sure the kid doesn't drink detergent or get near water because he can't swim yet. Like, that was not on my thing. But anyways, his croc got caught higher up on the slide, and his leg apparently wasn't broken. But then eventually, when it healed, they could tell that it was broken. That was the time
where he didn't want to walk.
He didn't want to walk. So I was getting ready to have a baby, and I had a 2-year-old who would not put weight on his leg. And then we had to go to all of these specialists to figure out the fact that it was actually fractured. It ended up, they couldn't tell it was fractured until it actually healed, and they could see where it had healed. But it's so interesting because kids are going to get hurt, and they're going to do crazy things no matter whether we hover over them and we overprotect them, or whether they, you know.
It just happens.
It just happens.
Yeah.
And I think it's what we do in those moments and how we react to those moments. Like, Eric's very much my reaction is always to be like, it's okay, it's okay. And his reaction in this really weird kind of like really sweet way is, don't tell him it's okay. It's not okay. He's hurt. Yeah. He's sad. You know, meet him where he's at. And I'm like, yeah, because you always meet me where I'm at. All right. Crap. But, you know, it's just like he always reminds me, like when I rush to the kid and I'm like, it's okay. It's going to be okay. He's like, it's going to be okay. You can tell them that, but don't tell them it's okay right now. They're crying. They're scared. They're hurt. You know, meet them there. And I'm like, okay. Thanks.
Do you have any like little favorite? Because I was like hearing from moms, and whether it's like the sticky bags and stuff like that. Do you have any like favorite little like first aid products and stuff?
Oh, I mean, we have so many Band-Aids in our
Just
house.
Curious.
And I wish that we could get like a Band-Aid situation. Like, has anybody made like a roll of Band-Aids yet? Like almost like tape, but like not tape.
Band-Aid by the foot.
Yeah, like fruit by the foot. Yeah, absolutely. Like something like that. Maybe that is my next business.
On your hip, and you just dole them out.
You just dole them out. But like, and I mean, there's medical tape and stuff like that. But here's the deal. Even for the kids who just want Band-Aids as stickers, the paper aspect of the Band-Aids, of what they're wrapped in, it is so thin that it gets everywhere, and then they're all over the floor, and then you just it's
maybe
obnoxious.
They have to wrap them individually, but it's such a waste.
Yeah,
but I was thinking the other day, this was really interesting. I went to the closet where we keep like extra towels and sheets, and at the top we've literally got about 4 different sizes of boots from Ortho on Call, and then like I went through another little medical bin, and we had like about 6 or 7 like finger splints, like for broken fingers and toes and stuff. And then we've got like the foot wraps and like the ankle wraps. And I'm like, we're like a small pharmacy.
I love it.
What else do we have? Like, so just things. And one of my favorite is the Dermoplast spray.
Yeah, you introduced me to that.
It's not cheap, but it kind of tingles, but it'll numb like skin abrasions and stuff like that. So my kids really like that. But
Eric thinks it's really funny to sit while we're at like Ortho on Call and like figure out how much like the boot or the brace would actually cost if you were to order it on Amazon. And I'm like, you're not going to. Like, we're gonna have to leave with this kid's with like boot, foot or arm immobilized. Like, we're not gonna go on Amazon and order it cheaper, dude. Well, I'm just trying to figure out what would happen. What happens if we just AliExpress some of this stuff? Da 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 da. And I'm like, dude, no. Like, we're gonna let this kid do this. But holy cow, how casts have changed. Have you had any that have been in like the new kind of like twisty thing?
No, I had no idea. I know.
So I haven't had any that have had like real breaks.
I don't know how we haven't. We have 12 kids. And let's just.
We've had some buckle fractures, and they have put the kids in these like newfangled cast things that like they heat up and they mold to their arm, but then there's a twisty thing that twists and tightens them, and then they could technically take them off to shower, or they're also waterproof. Amazing. So much different than like the whole cast padding fiberglass
you
type
remember
of thing.
It would like be like the wet plaster.
And then they would have to cut it off with a scary saw that like dripped hot water everywhere. Oh my God.
One miss and they've just sliced your arm. Like, how is this safe?
The childhood trauma we have from kids from the 80s at the fiberglass cast, and the sound of that thing. You would think they would give you like earphones or something. I don't know. Anyways. Injuries happen. Kids get hurt. I don't know what the moral of the story is, other than just normalizing the fact that it's gonna happen. I remember probably every single time each of my 6 kids, they went from like that baby stage to their first like bump or scrape or cut or something like that, and you realize that they are these little people who you're going to have to let actually walk and crawl and run, and they're going to bump their heads and things are going to happen. Yeah, it's so sad. But there's just such a fine line of doing those things that, you know, can truly protect them and take your anxiety away. Like, we have those little choke things, those little thing I get taken by every Facebook ad, and now that I've said this, I'm probably gonna get the ads as well. Those lifesaver
like
things.
Back. What is it called?
The life back stuff.
Yes,
the
ones
that are all over everywhere.
I'm like, is this a sign? Like,
I mentioned them on a podcast or on live ones, and then I got all the ads. So I apologize for everyone who gets the ads from them. But we have one at the office here, and then we have multiple ones at home. I have one in my car. Because we don't want to talk about my other car fear. My car fear is choking, and then not knowing who to get out of the car seat when if we were to go into water. But
that's one of my biggest ones. And as my kids get a little bit older, and sometimes the older ones, I'll leave them at home for a little bit or whatnot. And I want to be like, you can't eat while I'm gone. But I'm like, how do you combat that? Because like, yeah, you can eat, but I don't know. That's where I'm at now, is like, as I'm leaving kids, they're getting a little bit older. How do I keep them safe? Every time I leave the house, I'm like, so if the fire, like, Mom, I know. Like, we go straight outside. We call the neighbor, like.
It's so hard because it's like, but then these little things in life happen, like the slide incident, where I realized that was something because, I mean, yes, it was negligent because that is unsafe, and it is an unsafe thing that we should all probably know as moms happens, but it was from somebody literally wanting to hold and love my child. We went to this is like most traumatic motherhood, one of the most traumatic motherhood stories I have. But when Alex was like 6 months old, we went to a minor league baseball game in Florida. And we were sitting like line drive area. We shouldn't have. I was wearing Alex, and the ball, I cannot even tell you, this is not dramatic. The ball was a line drive and came within an inch of his head, and I grabbed him as the ball came, and he was on my chest, and I pushed him against my chest, and the ball literally, I watched it. I mean, I think it probably would have killed him on impact. Like, that's how fast the ball had been. I stood up, got to the parking lot. I vomited 3 times. Like, I literally it was the scariest thing that has ever happened to me. But I realized in that moment that absolutely we should not have been sitting there. 100%. Like, you sit behind the net. But at the same time, like, could you imagine even waking up every morning and making every single decision possible to keep your children safe? There comes a time where we make the decisions we can. We teach them. We cut their grapes. We cut their food. We teach them how to swim. We put those things in their brain. We try to teach them. I can't even imagine what it's like when you have to let them leave the house at 18 or you have to let them go drive and explain to them that they can't text and drive. Like, I don't even know what's going to happen. So good luck. Hopefully, I don't know if we'll still have a podcast then. Well, yours drives in like 2 years. But like, you can't protect them from everything.
I know. I don't. And I feel like I've asked my mom this before. I'm like, how did you sleep?
Yeah.
Like, how'd you sleep? And she's like, well, I didn't sleep very well. She's like, and I didn't sleep until Graham came home. So I'm like, oh, great. So I didn't sleep at the beginning.
You don't sleep at the beginning when you have kids. And
so I only get to sleep maybe between age 7 and 15. Like,
I don't know, guys. Well, good luck. Kids heal. Bones heal. In our family, you protect your brain. And
that's the one thing our doc always says. He's like, doctors have gotten really good at fixing bones and scrapes, but one thing they don't fix very well is brains.
Yep.
Every single appointment. So, so true.
Put those helmets on.
Yep.
All right. Bye, guys.